everybody, and welcome back. We are on the dawn of the brand new season, the 2024 NFL season / 2025, but that's months down the road. This is being recorded a week and a day before the NFL Hall of Fame game. This might come out exactly a week right before the Hall of Fame game. We waited. My dad here, Tony, is here to talk about the NFC South. We're going to be breaking out every division, but why don't you say hello to everybody?
How's everybody doing this evening?
So, we're starting with the NFC South, then we're going to do the AFC South, and then the East, North, and West, finishing off with the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. And if you're wondering why we picked the South, we had to start with the worst team in the NFL last year. It's a team I was high on, and I was really let down. I don't remember how high you were on them.
I picked them to finish last.
Well, I should have seen that with the Dave Tepper team. But we have a bunch to talk about. We have some craziness that happened with the Falcons draft. The Bucs keep some guys in-house, kind of exciting moving forward. The Saints bring in a new OC for the first time in how many years has a Sean Payton guy not been the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, it's been a while.
So there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. And first, we got to start off with the last place, Carolina Panthers. And could last year have gone any worse?
Well, they could have lost all their games, but let's see. You trade away the year before to get the first overall pick. You take that, and then you play horrible enough to where you give the team that you traded to the first overall pick. So I'd say that's probably not the greatest GM moves of all time.
And the quarterback drafted with your pick is a generational talent. So
yeah.
I'm sorry, Panthers fans. I feel like we should start this with a hug, but I can't physically give you a hug. Just know I feel bad for you. I was bamboozled by them last year, too. And we look at this team. They brought in a brand new coach. A coach you're more familiar with than me, so I'm probably going to let you have the floor with him. But Dave Canales, he was the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. He now becomes the Panthers head coach, and he spent time with the
Seattle Seahawks.
So I'm going to let you have the floor, and you are more well aware of Dave Canales than me, so give Panther fans some hope.
He is a great quarterback coach. And so after investing, a high pick, he works with quarterbacks and uses their strengths. It's not like a lot of other offensive coaches or defensive coaches, for that matter, that want you to use their coaching style. Canales does a very, very good job about searching out your strengths and putting you in the best possibility with those strengths. If you'll notice, they this year in free agency, they went and they picked up a couple of big guards, and they're going to do that because they're going to try to press that pocket to where he's not getting so much pressure up the middle. And that's just starting off. That's exactly what they're trying to do, is they're trying to give him some protection. So I love the addition of Canales. I hope that this isn't the worst possible situation for him. I think he's a really, really good coach, and I think he'll do well as a head coach. I'm just not sure if Carolina is the place for him.
So as much as we want to compliment this team, we have to address the elephant in the room. Do you trust Dave Tepper running this franchise forward, of him not making rash decisions based off moves that are happened this year, and Canales is able to build the team long term?
No, I don't.
Well, that was short and simple.
I guess it some of it's going to matter with, Dan Morgan, new GM. What assurances does he have from ownership for meddling? We don't know. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we're not in that room to know exactly the details of everything. We do know that Tepper's not afraid to write checks. That's a good thing. I mean, you might look at him like early on Jerry Jones, the way he has meddled and just gone out with his checkbook open. So Jerry did wise up a little bit. Maybe there's hope.
So does Dave Tepper know the definition of all in then?
You would have to reach out to him yourself.
Based off some stuff I've said about him, I don't think it'd be a open conversation. um, Dave Tepper, he feels like, and I know you may not get this, but as someone who watches European football, European soccer, whatever you want to call it, we're from the States, so we call it soccer, but European football, the owners are very rash, and they'll fire a guy like nothing and bring in a new guy and then fire him. That kind of feels like Tepper's mindset of just spend, 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 eventually it'll work out.
Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much been his MO thus far. The problem is you can't expect to go from zero to hero in the NFL, in one season. And I mean, look at their quarterback choice last year. It came up after the fact that that's not who the coach wanted, but that's who he wanted, Tepper wanted, and so that's what ended up happening. So, there's it's easy when you're writing the checks to say, oh, well, you didn't do very well and get rid of somebody. And I mean, that's pretty much what he's been doing for the last couple years. Let's hope it's not like that. And, if it is, Canales will, he'll get on somewhere else and he'll do a good job.
Okay. But to not beat down Panthers fans more, let's move on because I'm sure a lot of them aren't big David Tepper fans themselves. On the positives, they spent a lot of money in the offseason, and they really did a good job reworking the O-line. Now, do I think they overpaid some players? Yes, but they had money to burn, and Dave Canales likes to run the ball. He will run, as we saw with Tampa Bay. Probably learned that from some guy he coached under in Seattle. But he's very determined to run the ball, and I want to talk about Jonathan Brooks a little later because he is someone I do want to highlight. But they have a good running back room. They rebuilt this O-line. Do you think the Panthers will at least have more success on first and second downs running this year opposed to last year?
They should. Let's face it, their offensive line is a lot stouter. You got to remember, Canales had a history with Damian Lewis, and so knows him and knows as a run blocker, I mean, what he can do. Robert Hunt, another guy, and I understand that the guard market blew up. I'm not exactly sure that they're overpaying, specifically in their case, because you have such a small in stature quarterback that these two guys can help make that pocket a lot more user friendly for him. In a lot of other situations, I'd say you're probably right, and I don't think the guard market is or should be that high. But for Bryce, I think it's almost a necessity to go out and spend whatever you have to do to protect him.
And to move over to the defensive side of the football, they did lose a pretty key player in Brian Burns. Now, they did use that draft pick. We'll talk about their draft in a second. But what do you think losing Brian Burns does for this team? Do you think it helps them out? Does it signify that Brown is the guy that this defense is centered around, more or less? Or is it just, we needed to tear this team down, get as many picks in, and just try and rebuild this?
Well, I think that was another swing and a miss by the previous regime. They went from being able to get 2 first-rounders for him last year to what they got this year, which I believe was a second. Is that correct?
It It was a second, and I want to say it was maybe a mid-round swap or something.
Let's face it, he never really blossomed like they wanted to there. So rather than pay him and not really know what you have yet because your defense is changing, get what you can for him. And, I mean, they brought in some players that they're going to hope are going to help fill that out. Clowney on one side, Wanham. I think he is going to be sneaky good for the price that they paid for him.
Yeah. But to move forward, let's talk about the youth movement coming in. And they did have a first-round pick. They had to trade up to get it, but they used it on Xavier Legette. I was up and down on him the draft cycle. I could have seen him going early. I could have seen him sliding a bit. He was a very Jekyll and Hyde player to me, as when I don't know what I was getting. But the good parts were really effing good. So I like this pick, but what are your more thoughts on this?
I think it's smart. Let's look at it, right? One of the things that they had a problem with last year was Bryce getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He'd hold on to the ball, he'd get cracked. They didn't have anybody that could really get open. I mean, he's a built-in screen guy, right? You can do end arounds with him. Put the ball in his hand and let him go. It makes a lot of sense to have somebody to extend your running game even this way, to where it's a quick out and then just attack. I honestly, for what they're going to be trying to do, he probably made the most sense out of any of the top wide receivers.
And that's very fair. And while we're talking about the receiver room, as a Steeler fan, they acquired Deontay Johnson. I like Deontay Johnson. He is maddeningly frustrating and fun to watch. He does a lot of good, but then he does a lot of bad. He's very Jekyll and Hyde, in my opinion. He'll do some stuff that's going to make you pound your chest and scream, I love him, and then he's going to do some stuff that you're ripping your hair out of your head. But let's move on to their second round pick. Second pick, Jonathan Brooks. We both like him a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he is, if he wasn't hurt, I can totally see him going in the first round. Even with all the receivers that had gone and everything else, if he wasn't hurt, I can see that, because he is that special.
I don't see that, mainly because I think all the teams drafted later on really needed a lot of the receiver help and defensive help. But he fits this new Carolina direction of they're going to run the football down your throat. They have 3 running backs who can run the football in Jonathan Brooks, Miles Sanders, and Chuba Hubbard. The big thing is with these guys, it's probably going to be who gets the carries in early. And as people who play fantasy football, that's going to be a big-time question we're going to be asking. And I would probably say, as we look at this team, maybe go Brooks if anybody had that backcourt fantasy football, but it's a little questionable of how many touches he will get when he's in that room with already 2 established NFL backs, that he's going to maybe have to work his way up into the number 1 carries.
So my question to you is, obviously we both think Brooks is going to be a good pickup for fantasy football. Is there anybody else in their draft that you think is going to have a really, really good year?
I would say if you're looking for value, because I don't think any of these guys should be your top choice for a position group. They should not be your top choice for the running back room, in my opinion. You should probably have 2 guys before Brooks. You should probably have maybe 3 guys before you touch Panthers wide receiver, just based off what we saw last year. I would say late round, if you could, Legette would be fun. I would not hate if you have one last pick and you need a receiver depth, Adam Thielen. And the reason I say that, and I know Thielen's not what he once was. He is older now. He doesn't have that same burst. But him and Bryce did have a connection last year. And the problem was, Bryce couldn't hold on to the ball long enough to get the ball to him as much as he wanted to. But when Thielen was open, Bryce did hit him consecutively, and they played with each other. They had that chemistry. I would say end of the draft, Adam Thielen is definitely worth a look.
Oh, I meant their draft class.
Oh, draft class. Well, yes and no, because I do love Jatavion Sanders, but I am very cautious about drafting rookie tight ends in fantasy football because I think they need a year or two. Most do need a year or two to grow into the NFL.
The last couple of years, I would disagree with that. The last couple of years, tight ends have come out and they've hit the ground running, and I think it's more because they're route runners more so than they used to be.
But those are also highly drafted guys. As much as I did like Sanders, he was a 4th-round pick.
I think that he should have gone earlier. I am a lot higher on him. I honestly think he should have gone at least in the 3rd round. So.
I had a 2nd-round grade on him, so I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I do think he will not get the reps you would want for a fantasy tight end.
Oh, I think he's gonna surprise you, but that's okay. That was who I was wanting to talk about, because if you look at their top 4 picks, I like Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. I think he's gonna help him out. But I mean, once again, big, fast guy in Sanders. Catches the ball well, has got a good wingspan. Leggett can do short throws and turn him into yards, and then Brooks handoff. So everything is tying into a quick passing game, getting the ball out of his hands as quick as possible.
Which Bryce did very well at Alabama. I do want to ask about I don't know if you watched them, and this is a while ago, so if you remember, your memory might be a little funky. But did you watch any of the other Panthers draft picks in Charles Smith-Wade, Jaden Crumdy, or Michael Barrett?
I saw Smith-Wade just because he was from Washington State. I watched some Mississippi State games, but Crumdy didn't. Yeah. I honestly think that Michael Barrett is a sneaky good 7th-round pick, simply because he's that guy that allows everybody else to do the special things.
So I thought he was a guy that I looked at and was like, that's a good special teamer. He's gonna be on that team for a while, just as a great special teamer.
Yeah, he'll play special teams, but he's a do your job kind of guy. So.
Okay, now it's time to move on, and the Atlanta Falcons surprised me a bit last year, finishing 3rd in the division. There were a lot of things that went wrong in Atlanta, a lot to talk about with the Falcons draft class, but I don't think we can kick this off any other way than saying, Atlanta fans, how does it feel to be free from Arthur Smith? No more Michael Pruitt red zone touches.
Didn't you have Atlanta winning that division last year?
I plead the 5th.
Okay, I was just asking.
In my defense, they would have if they had competent quarterback play. Because that team did everything right but the quarterback play.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. We could say that, I mean, about a lot of teams, right? If they did something this way, then they would have done a lot better, right? So, I mean, if Pittsburgh would have got rid of your favorite offensive coordinator,
they still would have lost in the wild card round.
But they would have done better all year. So
Yeah, but lowered my expectations, so I was happy when Rudolph came in. But the Falcons, let's talk about them. Not talk about the Steelers too much. Now, I do want to get their issue out of the way, because I do have a biggest issue written down for every team, and the thing that I'm scared with the Falcons is they gave a massive contract to an aging quarterback coming off a bad injury. Some question marks there?
Well, I mean, he's not really a mobile quarterback anyway. And so I don't know if it's that big a deal. Yeah, he's older, but people are coming back from his injury wasn't as bad as others have been, right? His was pretty basic so far as, a catastrophic injury can be. So I think you might be worrying more about that just due to his age, but these guys are athletes. They take care. And I mean, look at the amount of money that goes into their their health and well-being. So I think health-wise, I think he's going to be okay. Um, you know, I don't really feel that that's going to be an issue. Their doctors are paid pretty good to make sure that mistakes like that don't happen. The amount of money that they gave him, that's a lot of money. And it's guaranteed, which just befuddles me.
Can we just say Kirk Cousins, he is going in the Sports Hall of Fame of business?
Oh my God, yes.
He has never been the most talented quarterback in the NFL. He's sometimes not even been a top 10 quarterback in the NFL in years. But you know what he's been great at? Negotiating contracts. This man has set himself up for wealth for the rest of his life, has set his kids up for wealth, probably his grandkids and great-grandkids as well. Done a phenomenal job negotiating contracts. Him and his agent, round of applause. And I don't want to be too negative because I do like Kirk. I do think when healthy, if he is healthy, he is a drastic improvement from what they had last year, which is why my other big thing that they did the offseason was they improved their quarterback room dramatically. Now, whether it's I like that Captain Kirk Cousins or their rookie quarterback, who I can't wait to talk about, they improved their room. There's no doubt about it. There are more talented arms in that room than there were last year. There are better guys at reading defenses than there was last year. And just overall, there's more just fun in that room than last year. Desmond Ridder was not a fun quarterback to watch. And even though Taylor Heineke kind of has that chip on his shoulder play style, he wasn't all that fun to watch when he was a starter. And now you look at the Falcons, who do have a brand new head coach, and they have brought in Zach Robinson to be the offense coordinator. I can't exactly remember who the defense coordinator was off the top of my head they brought in, but I do know he's from the Rams. I think he was a secondary coach last year. And they brought in, I think it's Scott Sarnecki, if I'm saying his name right. He is the son of legendary Patriots offensive line coach Skarnecki, who built that O-line for the dynasty for years upon year upon year upon year. And just overall great offseason moves by the Falcons, bringing in a staff I really like. I really like Raheem Morris. I thought he did very good with the Rams defense last year. I think he's got a lot of pieces to work with here to improve the defense this year. But what are your thoughts on the Falcons' new coaching staff and overall what they did to improve this team?
They've got weapons galore. I mean, they got Robinson. They've got Pitts. This right now is Pitts' do or die because Cousins uses tight ends very well, right? And London should do pretty well here as well. And, they brought in Darnell Mooney, excuse me, yes, and Rondell Moore. They traded for him. So they've got lots of weapons. They've got good running backs. So I think offensively, I think Zach Robinson should do pretty well, right? Defensively, I was skeptical just because they didn't go out and they didn't get their A+ pass rusher. But when you look at the rest of their draft after the Penix anomaly, they got Rook Ororoho, who I absolutely love.
So let's talk about him because a lot of Falcons fans were not happy with that pick when it was made.
Well, they need to wake up. That guy is so much untapped. He was really, really good, and he's just learning the game. Wait until he actually learns it. I mean, right? He is going to be amazing. So, and then Braylon Trice, I'm not the biggest Braylon Trice fan, so
I was.
Yes, you were. I think that he went too high here. I honestly would have given late 4th, early 5th round grade to him. But you get Aurora, and then you get Brandon Dorlus, and I do like Brandon Dorlus, right? So I think the interior of their line is going to be a lot better, and so maybe their edges are going to be able to crash better.
You know what their draft really reminded me of when I looked at those picks? They said, try and run on us, I dare you.
Oh, absolutely.
They are going to force the Panthers, who will be a run-first team, let's be real here, the Bucks, who will probably stick with the run-first because the offense Baker thrives in, and the Saints, who maybe run first. I'm really confused with their running back room.
I don't think the Saints are a run-first team, but the other pick that they have is Bertrand, the linebacker. So, I mean, they're really trying to be stout.
And they took Jace McClellan from Alabama, who I think might be the return man this year. He's very shifty, has a lot of speed, has some good burst. I think he would be their good return man with the new kickoff rules in play.
You don't think that's why they brought in Ray McLeod?
I think a running back is better suited for returning kicks this year than wide receivers are. And I like Ray.
They lost who is going to be an absolute stud returning kicks. They let him walk, and I'm down on the Falcons because of that.
Maybe the greatest return man in NFL history, and that's saying a lot.
Can you imagine?
Oh, he cut out. That's hilarious.
No, can you imagine what Patterson's career return highlights would be if this rule change would have been 5 or 6 years ago?
I hope I see a lot of those highlights now. They also drafted Casey Washington out of Illinois, who I'm not going to lie, when I watched Illinois, I never thought, man, their passing attack and receiver room is great. Never thought that. I always thought, well, it's okay. Zion Lodge from Georgia, just more stout, more run defense. It feels like a draft trying to cement their identity of, we're going to beat you up front. We have these freaky athletic linebackers, and if we can get them free to just run and hit and not think as hard of, well, I have to hit this gap at this point, make sure we're just going to clog them up, and we're going to tell our athletes, go. And I think that might work, and Raheem Morris is a very intelligent defensive mind when it comes to that.
Well, I mean, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to slow down on the offense and just be explosive on the defense.
And now I think we have to talk about the pick. Michael Penix, I was shocked. You were shocked. I don't think there was a person watching the draft that wasn't shocked. I think even Michael Penix and his family were shocked. That being said, the talent is there. You have to have some concerns about injury. Yes. Do you have concerns about age? Probably. But if Kirk Cousins' Achilles does not hold up, Penix can start. He will be good. If you can keep him upright, which I think their O-line can do, it's pretty good. And he thrived in Washington having all these weapons, and he knew how to get the ball to all of his weapons. Is his receiving core as good as it was in Washington? Probably not. But it's pretty good. He's got Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. You got Mooney and Rondale Moore. They got talent there. So if Penix is required to play, I do think there wouldn't be a drastic step down.
So you say you mentioned the age thing. He's a spring chicken compared to the guy that you just paid over, $100 million to.
Well, yeah. I think he's 14 years his younger one. Right around that. And
so that's a long career.
Yeah, that's 14 years. I mean, how long was Matt Ryan there? 2008 till 2022? 14 years?
Yeah.
So if you can have a Matt Ryan career arc, Falcons fans, minus the blown lead in the Super Bowl, would you take that?
That's just another indication that Kyle Shanahan's great to get to the Super Bowl. Just not sure he handles it very well.
Save your Niner shots for the West. I think that's going to wrap us up on the Falcons. A lot of positives. Some questions, but mostly positives. Up next is the New Orleans Saints, and they did bring in a new offensive coordinator, but my concern, and I think it should be everyone's concern, is Ramchek's probably done as offense lineman, and that sucks because he was one of the best right tackles in the league. They did draft a guy in Fuaga to replace him, but what do the Saints miss losing Ramchek? Probably.
Well, I mean, leadership, but here's the kicker on that. Clint's coaching style is a little bit different, so I don't think you're going to lose as much.
Yeah, but this team, there are some positives, and even though I do think it is a negative losing Ramchek, and I don't really know how much great is on the Saints roster, they did bring in Fuaga, who is really good, and how do you think they're going to shore up their offense line to protect Derek Carr, who really didn't get much help at all last year?
Well, they brought in Udo as a free agent. He's got experience. So I think they're going to run the ball more. That's a Kubiak thing. They're going to run the ball more. So what worries me for the Saints is after Fuaga and McKinstry, like your next two picks are Spencer Rattler and Bud Means. I'm like, okay, I don't get it. Now I get it. There, it's in the 5th round. But then you come back, and I like the Jalen Ford pick. But their draft seemed to me to be all over. They addressed their biggest need. And then, I mean, what round did they get the quarterback in last year?
Who did they draft last year that was a quarterback?
I can't remember, but
Am I blanking on this guy here? I don't remember them drafting a quarterback.
They did draft a quarterback last year.
Okay, just go on. I'll look it up.
So then you go out and you get Spencer Rattler. And I guess the consensus jury decision for him is out. Some people love him, and most people don't. So
I'm a don't.
I'm an indifferent.
So, okay, I don't remember if he was a draft pick, but you're thinking of Jake Keener.
Yeah.
I can't remember if he was drafted or a UDFA, but that's who you're thinking of, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just don't understand where they're going through. I mean, I like Josiah Ezram. I think he's got a lot of upside in the 7th round. But I've always been really positive about the Saints and their drafts and everything else.
Oh, you just cut out.
I've been positive about the Saints, and this isn't one of the positive drafts for me.
And I've been on the negative. And I'm indifferent about this class. Of course, I love Fuaga. Who didn't love Fuaga? Were there concerns about his arms not being the right measurement? Yeah, but that's a big boy. Kool-Aid.
It's a big boy that's mean.
Yeah, he is a mean guy. And his dad, if you've heard some people talk about his dad from the Pro Day, and we heard this in the Bootleg Football podcast, if you remember. One of the guys was there talking with Fuaga's dad, and Fuaga said, could be better. So he's going to have someone in his corner push and be better. Kool-Aid, I wasn't as high on him as everyone else was. I just didn't get it personally. He's lengthy. He has good size with his arms. He is 5'11". He's under 6 foot. I just never felt like he was a cornerback I would have pounded the table for. If he was there, fine, but not someone I would have gone out my way to take.
In the second round where they got him, I think it's a good pick.
I think it's fine. If I remember correctly, there was another guy on the board I liked because I remember thinking that, but not off the top of my head, I can't remember. Spencer Rattler. I've not been a Spencer Rattler guy. I think he handled his benching for Caleb Williams poorly at Oklahoma when he went to South Carolina. The one thing I will give him credit is he didn't go after teammates like he did at Oklahoma or high school. He took his beatings, and he got hit a lot last year at South Carolina behind a bad O-line. I just never felt like Spencer Rattler was a guy who's going to make the NFL. But as a fifth-round pick, it's whatever. Bub Means I actually really liked. I thought he was given the shaft at Pitt with horrible quarterback play. I felt he was much better than a fifth-round pick. I thought he would, if we're looking at talent-wise, I would say late third, early fourth. I think they got good value there on Bub Means. He'll probably make the team. The only other guy I was really excited about, the others I was indifferent, was Christian Boyd, who I did like out of Northern Iowa. I thought he was someone the Steelers should take. He was a very good run-stuffing interior defensive lineman that could also get to the quarterback. Are there concerns about FCS translating to NFL? Absolutely, that's the case with every FCS player. But I think the film is there to show that he is good enough to make the transition.
So what do you think about some of their free agent acquisitions this year?
I actually do not have that list in front of me, but I will look that up.
Well, so Chase Young, they brought in Chase Young. Okay.
Oh, I thought we were talking UDFAs.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No. Chase Young, they brought in Udo, which I had already mentioned. Ugo Amadi, I love Ugo Amadi, drafted by the Seahawks. He didn't make it there. I always thought that he kind of got the short end of the stick. I didn't realize he was still playing. But
maybe not the biggest sign of endorsement for a new guy on the team. Oh, he's still in the league. Wow.
He's still in the league. Wow. But I do love he comes up with some pretty good plays. Jonathan Abram, another guy that I was like, really? Wow. Okay. Cedric Wilson. I think Cedric Wilson for them can be a sneaky good get. He always is just there to catch the ball.
Okay, real talk. Jonathan Abrams is still in the league. That I did not know.
Yep.
Okay, I am sorry, Mr. Abrams. I am sorry. I was a fan of you coming out. Just didn't see it hit yet.
And then Nathan Peterman, your guy.
Whew, I was wrong on him.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, I'm looking at their UDFAs, and actually, there's one I actually kind of want to highlight here. And it is someone we have watched. I can't remember if we saw him in person or not. But Jermaine Jackson from Idaho. He was really talented. I know he's been in Idaho for a while. That's a guy I kind of like to make the team there, looking at that list.
Well, I mean, he gives them something that they really don't have right now. So, and I don't think we actually saw him live, though.
Maybe I saw him live with somebody.
You might have.
I remember seeing him. But the Saints, and real quick, you mentioned Chase Young. Is there a player I'm more frustrated with than Chase Young? Not because he's not a good NFL player. I expected elite, and he has just been fine. And I thought he was really exposed in that 49ers Super Bowl run, personally.
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, let's face it. The players, when they're drafted ultra high, is it their fault that they don't pan out? No. Sometimes it's just not there. And it doesn't have to be physical. Sometimes it's mental. I mean, sometimes they just don't have it. That's a lot of players in the NFL. They're drafted high, they have great potential, and they've got all the physical tools in the world. But understanding what it takes to play at the NFL level and put it all together is something that, I mean, it's a lot harder than everybody thinks. We can sit back here and we can talk about, well, he missed this play or he did this wrong or whatever else. But sadly, we're not there. He is. Maybe they diagnosed something, or maybe he just didn't get. I've come around. I used to be very, very critical when I was watching players, and in my old age, I realized that they're still doing something that I could never do. And do I get frustrated? Yes. And do I yell at the TV? Yes. But it's not his fault. He was drafted where he was drafted.
So, and the reason why I say frustrating is because his rookie year, he was phenomenal. And, of course, he had that really bad knee injury. And I'm assuming that's still stuck with him because if I remember correctly, when he signed with the Saints, he did have to have a knee thing done, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
So, I hope he works out because he was fun to watch in college. His rookie year, he was dominant. He's just someone that I've been waiting to get back to it. He just hasn't, and it saddens me because I'm a Chase Young fan. But the Saints overall, it kind of feels like we're talking about them as they can be fine to good, but they're nowhere close to great. They didn't really have a draft to bolster this team up. They didn't really bring in anybody to bolster this team up. And the next question I want to ask you, is this from years of neglecting the salary cap, pushing it down the road to now you just got to pay the price and it's going to suck?
That's a good question, and I hadn't thought about it like that. Personally, I think that this is Dennis Allen's last year. Okay,
I would agree.
and so what I think is going on is I think that they're trying to stabilize the offensive line and making fewer investments than they normally would, so that they can start again new next year. Maybe Clint Kubiak will actually step into that, that head coaching. They do tend to like offensive-minded head coaches. Dennis Allen, gave it his all, but his situational coaching isn't there, right? So I don't know if it's just the salary cap so much as I thought it was that the writing on the wall is that Dennis Allen's going to be gone. Because normally the Saints would just go out and do whatever they could in free agency, and they didn't spend. So.
Yeah. So then this is going to lead me asking you, is this Derek Carr's last year with the Saints? Because they do have a way to get out of the deal, if I remember correctly, this upcoming offseason.
I think it'll depend upon how he melds with what Kubiak does. So I honestly think he is the perfect quarterback for how Kubiak, coaches. Will that turn into wins? It's going to depend upon how well. I think the biggest thing for them is how well they're going to be able to run the ball this year.
Here's another one for you. If they do decide to keep Carr, do they bring in a guy he's been working with and who has been a head coach in the NFL and has even won a Super Bowl, and John Gruden?
No.
Okay. I just felt like it should be asked because they do work together and he does have experience coaching. And he is, as you said, an offensive mind.
Yeah, they've had to deal with coaching issues down in the Bayou already. They're not going to bring in another coach that has issues.
Okay. So can I say then who I think will be the next head coach? Because he's already beloved in the Bayou. Joe Brady. And Saints fans will, and particularly the LSU Saints fans are going to be like, my guy. or they go, my God, whatever. I can't do a Cajun accent. I apologize. The Bucks. Now it's time to move on to the defending division champions. In my opinion, the biggest issue for the Bucks when I looked over their team, I like their starters. Man, their depth is not that good.
I would agree. I honestly think that they had the best draft out of the four teams in the division. Let's face it, the Saints needed a tackle. They got a tackle. Atlanta. I mean, they got a quarterback, and so I mean, quarterback is the most important position. When is he going to see the field? We don't know. But even if it's 2 or 3 years later, it's okay. The Panthers needed a playmaker, and they got him. But Graham Barton, I mean,
I wanted Barton. You wanted Barton. I think anybody who watched Barton was like, I really want him on my football team.
Yes. But then you go and you get Braswell, who not super consistent, but his flashes are great.
And you pair him with Todd Bowles, a guy who can get a lot out of somebody.
Yes. And then you get Tyke Smith. I think I was higher on Tyke Smith than you were, but I do like that pick. Jalen McMillan, come on, okay? I mean, that's a good get in the third round. And then I really like Devin Culp. So another Washington Husky.
Okay, notice how the Husky fan skips over the Oregon Duck.
Well, okay, I'll get Bucky. Bucky's plucky, okay? Bucky is plucky.
He is something. I don't know what, but he is fun to watch. That was my takeaway when I watched this film.
He's plucky. I'm telling you.
He is. He's like that guy at Baltimore that popped last year. I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, the rookie, right?
I don't know if he was rookie or second year, but I think it was something Mitchell, Keon Mitchell. I don't know. I feel like I'm putting someone else's name there, but he reminds me a lot of that. Just something about him screams he could very much pop and be their number one back by the end of the season, and I would not be shocked at all.
Well, if he's not afraid to stick his nose in there, you might be right. So,
and he was good in pass pro too. If you saw him in pass protection, he did step up and get guys, which is a big thing for rookie running backs coming into the league.
Yeah. Picking it up in college and picking it up in the pros is a little bit different, though. So
I'm not saying it's the easiest transition, but that's always a plus when you see a running back pick someone up.
Oh, absolutely.
Keontae Mitchell. That was the guy I was thinking of.
Okay.
So, a lot of positives about the Bucs. They keep their same quarterback, Baker Mayfield. They re-signed him to a good extension. The team is very similar, except they don't have Dave Canales anymore. And losing Dave Canales did make me go a little hesitant on them of like, how good can this team be with a new OC, a new staff coming in, working with Baker? Because the one thing Canales has always done very well, he suits the offense to the quarterback.
Yes. Now, the one thing I'll say is that Liam Cohen did coach Baker when Baker was with the Rams. So there is familiarity there.
And I believe, if I remember correctly, he was the OC for Will Levis's senior year at Kentucky, or maybe it was junior year. It was one of those years. So he has worked with other guys as a play caller, a guy who is in the NFL. Whether if you're a big Will Levis fan or not, he was the OC and he did work with a guy who's in the league. Now Baker is a guy who's probably going to voice his opinion more than a college quarterback would at the time. But as you said, he was with the Rams previously, and he was just with the Kentucky Wildcats last year again as their quarterback coach. So he has experience as a play caller. That has to give you some confidence instead of just plucking a quarterback coach or whatever and just saying, you're the play caller now.
I was playing devil's advocate when I talked about Cohen. I think losing Canales is going to hurt their offense a lot.
think that's hard to argue with. Canales proved that he was one of the top OCs considering how low everyone was on the Bucks last year. That O-line played great football. Baker reinvigorated himself. The receiver room was just as good as it once was. It was a much better team than anyone thought, which goes on Todd Bowles for hiring Canales, in my opinion, and just bringing that staff back, bring the Bucks back to where they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they were actually a fun team to watch last year. So I remember when we did this episode last year, we both said that they could finish the last team in the division, but if they stayed healthy and Baker played, they could win the division.
I don't think I said that at all because I was really low on them.
No, if you go back and listen, we both thought that if they did hit, that they'd be okay because they had all the same pieces. That's the thing. They didn't lose a whole lot from the previous year.
Yeah. Now, I think we're overall done talking about these teams. We kind of rambled on certain teams a little longer that did kind of deserve a little bit more attention because there were more changes there than some others. But I got to ask, in this whole division, who is your defensive MVP of this division?
Not rookie, just defensive MVP.
Just defensive.
Ooh. That's a good question.
Well, you think I'll jump in? I got Levante David. Maybe the most criminally underrated player in the entire league. He is not talked about on the spectrum he should be. When Levante David was in his prime and the Bucks were going Super Bowl, it was Devin White. David was the better player. David has been the centerpiece of that Bucks defense for a decade now, I think he's been in the league. He has not lost a step. He is still just as good as he once was. And he is the green dot. He calls all the plays out. He helps arrange the defense. He gets them in the right spots. And when the defenders hit, it's usually him being a big part of the reason why.
He's awesome. There's no doubt about that. I gotta go Cam Jordan.
We picked the two old guards in the division.
Yeah, we did.
But there's a reason they're still playing in the division.
Do you know who I thought you were gonna say?
Winfield?
Ebiketie.
He is my guy who I think can pop, and I'm glad you brought him up. I think Arnold Ebiketie can pop this year. Raheem Morris, just coaching him up. I think there's something there because he reminds me a lot of Leonard Floyd, who did fine in Chicago, but then got to the Rams, got working with Raheem Morris, and Morris just worked with him and got him good. And I believe Raheem was the linebacker coach when Floyd first came over. So that brings even more to me is that I think so highly of Raheem Morris as a linebacker coach, as a defensive mind, and Arnold Ebiketie, I just think he can pop this year.
I knew you've been talking about him a little bit, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we talked about him.
Yep. Offensive MVP for the division. I'm sticking with the same team. I'm sticking with the old guard, the guy who he's still so damn good, Mike Evans. There may be wide receivers better than him in the league, but consistently, year in, year out, you're getting 1,000 yards, you're getting touchdowns, you're getting a guy who can take over a game like nothing.
I'm going Bijan.
Ooh. Getting that running game going. Now, time to talk about the rookies. Who is your offensive rookie of the year for this division?
I got to go Jonathan Brooks. I think that they're going to just use the out of him.
I would agree. Jonathan Brooks is my pick as well. I don't see a way that he is not the number one back by the end of the season, minus an injury. It's just there are guys where you can see that they're going to get more touches than everyone else, and it's very easy to see Jonathan Brooks is probably going to get the most touches out of all the guys picked in the division. Now, if you wanted to say, hey, Graham Barton's going to start and he's going to change that Bucs O-line, and that's what you're going to argue with, I completely get that because Barton is awesome. But I'm going to go with the guy that we're going to consistently see touch the ball and is going to score touchdowns, which will get more coverage by the media and all that.
Yeah, of course, it always does.
Defensive Rookie of the Year. This one was a little harder because I do think this was a very good defensive draft for the division. I think you could have gone with a couple guys.
So here's the thing. I think that if you're trying to measure impact, almost like what you just talked about with Graham Barton. So just because a guy plays on like the interior of the line, he's not going to get noticed as much. So I'm going to go with Tyke Smith as being the defensive or rookie of the year for them. He's good getting the ball. I think he's going to be playing pretty quick, and he's a playmaker.
So I'm picking a guy. I was really high on the draft. I like where he landed. I've talked about this guy's coach enough recently. Ruka Waror. He is a freak athlete. If he gets the right coaching, which I think he's going to get, this guy can pop majorly. He can stuff the run. I can see him getting after the quarterback. He is very fast, very quick twitch. I think he could be in for a big year.
So here's the kicker, and this is why I did not pick him, because I already talked about how he's one of my favorite gets in this draft. Raheem doesn't have a lot of defensive tackles get a lot of sacks.
Well, there was a guy who got a lot of sacks for the Rams that he was the coach of.
Yeah, but that guy got sacks with everybody. So
well, I'm not saying he didn't.
But I don't think that he's going to get the sacks to get noticed, right? And that's why I said interior defensive line. I don't think that's going to get noticed enough, and that's why I picked a safety.
That's very fair, and I'm such a big Rook fan. This is partially me just kind of being a big fan of his, wanting to see him pop and explode on the scene in Atlanta.
I don't discount it. I love him too. I mean, like I said, in the 4 draft classes, he's my favorite pick.
Yeah, no, I completely.
Well, no, I just lied because it's Graham Barton.
Oh,
sorry.
I will take Rook just because I feel like there is more left on the table from him than from his college coach than there was with Barton. We've talked enough previously about the Clemson defense coordinator. Not a fan.
No, neither am I.
So now let's talk about the division rankings to wrap this up. And I'm going to ask you for the 4th place team, and I'm assuming it's going to be my 4th place team. So 3, 2, 1, Panthers.
Panthers.
Sorry, Carolina. We talked about your positives, but overall, there's just so much room to grow that this can very well be a better team, but they're just not going to be good.
3rd in the division.
I got the Saints.
I have the Saints.
I don't think their coach is an NFL head coach. I don't trust their O-line yet. I just feel like it's a team that's kind of in the mud. 2nd. Now, this might be our disagreement of 1st and 2nd.
I have the Falcons 2nd.
Okay, we agree 100%. I got the Falcons 2nd as well. I wanted to put them 1st, but I am still worried about Kirk Cousins' Achilles. I'm not a fan of Achilles injuries. I just don't like them. I grew up a Kobe Bryant fan. I saw what that did to him. It has messed with my mind whenever I see an Achilles injury. I'm like, nope, no good. So would it shock me if the Falcons won the division? Absolutely not. But I can't pick them yet.
Not at all. Like I said, if Cohen and Baker don't mesh, the Falcons should win the division, right? They've got all the pieces to do it.
It would be the least shocking thing if the Falcons blew onto the scene and were like a top 2 seed in the NFC. It would not shock me at all.
Well, look at we went through there. We look at their offensive firepower, and Kurt, if he's healthy, can get the ball to all of them. And the thing is it's a great running game as well, right? So, I mean, it's all the pieces are there. They were a pretty good defense last year, and they got pieces to make themselves better.
And a drastic improvement at head coach. I think that needs to be stated.
Yes.
Even though he's never been a head coach before, I always felt like the issue with Arthur Smith is he wanted to be the smartest guy in the room and acknowledges that. Where I think Raheem Morris is more willing to listen to others. First place, we pretty much both have said it. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Bucs.
They are the defending division champions. As of today, I see them repeating. I like their defense. I think they can get to the quarterback. I think they have good linebacker play. Their secondary is good. Winfield is one of my favorite safeties in the league. Their offensive line is improved with Barton. They have a decent running attack. They have a tremendous receiving group. It's just hard not to pick the Bucs with the information we are given today on July 24th. We're recording this.
I would concur.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for the NFC South. I hope you all enjoyed. This will be going up before the Hall of Fame game, so we're going to get one out, and then we're maybe going to get a second one out in the NFC South, depending on how long that recording goes. But everyone, I'm so happy to be back here, have this microphone in front of me, talking about the greatest sport on earth. It's just joy. So everyone, have a great day and be safe.
And please let us know what you think.